on the continent of Africa, many have been estranged from the United Methodist Church now that it has made several decisions that have gone pretty far left, and they cannot go with the Americans who've chosen this route that they have largely discerned is biblically just untenable. So different groupings have reacted in different ways. Kenya just said, "We're leaving, let us go," and they just got up and left. So I've talked with a gentleman in Tanzania who talked about how the GMC is just starting off from scratch there, and a lot of people are leaving the UMC and joining them, even though the official annual conference report from Tanzania says the opposite. You got the Côte d'Ivoire, where instead of a big faction leaving like in Kenya, just the whole conference is leaving. And I still don't know if they're engaging the paragraph 572 process or if they're just up and leaving and saying, if you want us to negotiate with you, you can sue us. But I don't think they're joining the GMC. You got Liberia with Bishop Quire advocating very hard. We need to have this conversation, but as of yet, no decision has been made. And you have Nigeria. There are a couple other countries and conferences that I haven't mentioned. But Nigeria is the biggest African they were tied with, I think they're actually smaller than Côte d'Ivoire. But they're still huge. And then, we can't get any solid numbers on how many people are attached to it. Nigeria has been a big mess for a long time. And one of the things that I'll say up front is I'm pretty sure it's going to stay a big mess. I don't know all the factors, but this is partly good news that they're coming on board, but it's not bad news. It's just, here's the point where things are going to get more complicated for reasons that I may or may not discuss here in a little bit. But let's read Diane Burnett's article. Remember, she's the communications officer for the whole denomination. She drafted this article entitled "Global Methodist Church Welcomes Bishop John Wesley Yohana and Recognizes 4 Nigerian Conferences as Provisional Annual Conferences." Wow. At its meeting on August 5th, the TLC of the Global Methodist Church celebrated the decision of Bishop John Wesley Yohana and the 4 annual conferences in Nigeria to become part of the Global Methodist Church. By unanimous vote, the Southern Nigeria, Central Nigeria, Northern Nigeria, and Northeast Nigeria conferences voted to end their relationship with the UMC and become members of the Global Methodist Church. The 4 Nigerian annual conferences now join the 32 provisional annual conferences previously formed by the Global Methodist Church organized around the world. So that puts us at 36 annual conferences in the Global Methodist Church. That's huge. Bishop Yohana has been the Episcopal leader of the church in Nigeria since his election in 2012. So he's been in position a long time. If you haven't seen it, I've actually had a one-on-one interview with him. He has provided significant spiritual and moral leadership to the Nigerian church as it has responded to decisions made recently by the General Conference of the UMC. The TLC has welcomed Bishop Yohana as an elder and clergy member and recognized him as an active bishop of the GM Church effective July 29th, 2024. So up until now, there have been only 2 active bishops, Scott Jones and Mark Webb, and then several bishops emeritus, at least 4. There's a Korean gentleman, I can't remember his name. There's a gentleman out of the Evangelical Methodist Church, I can't remember his name. Bishop Robert Hayes out of the UMC. Bishop Mike Lowry out of the UMC. These are the 4 that I can call upon. I want to say maybe there's 1 or 2 more. But bishops emeritus, they don't work the way that these other bishops do. They can, and Lowry in particular has stepped up to do many functions that are needed. But now we have a 3rd active bishop in the GMC, Bishop John Wesley Yohana. Along with Bishops Scott Jones and Mark Webb, Bishop Yohana serves as a general superintendent of the entire church. He will have continuing responsibilities related to overseeing congregations and clergy in Nigeria. However, the GMC does not appoint bishops to serve as residential bishops. Bishop Yohana has announced his intention to become a bishop emeritus once legislation on episcopacy and superintendency is adopted by the GMC convening General Conference and implemented. So speaking about this, there is a plan for managing the episcopacy put forward by the TLC that could potentially be adopted at this convening conference. This is the one that has the 9 candidates to be 2-year bishops with potential additional candidates nominated between now and I don't remember when the cutoff date is. Then there's the Florida plan, which was presented by Jay Therrell and his crew, which doesn't have 2-year bishops. I was looking at a compare and contrast thing of the different plans against each other, and it conceives of bishops a little bit differently. And then you can reject both plans. We could reject both plans and not have bishops for 2 more years and then come up with a working plan in 2026. And I think that's what I'm actually in favor of right now. And I'll try and do a breakdown and analysis on that soon and why it is that we should potentially just not adopt anything right now. So anyway, it looks like Johanna's not planning on serving very long past the convening conference. It seems to me that that Webb and Jones are planning on continuing to serve, and that would be great for steady hands on the wheel for at least 2 more years. And then I'd be surprised if they didn't retire in 2026. But who knows? I can be surprised. Bishop Johanna has announced, okay, I already read that. Nigeria is the latest to join the GMC network on the continent of Africa, joining the DRC, Tanzania, Central African Republic, Kenya, Ethiopia, and South Africa. I did not know about South Africa. The GMC continues to be dedicated to the people of Africa, striving to support and nurture the spiritual growth and development of our congregations across the continent. The TLC also appointed 4 Nigerian leaders to serve as presidents pro tempore of the 4 provisional annual conferences: Reverend Alexander A. Sabo of Central Nigeria, Reverend Shagari Umar of Northeast Nigeria, Reverend Hassan Salama of Northern Nigeria, and Reverend Baziel Yuala Yayuba, Southern Nigeria. So if you remember, he sits on the TLC, actually, Baziel, and he is a lot of times rightly seen as the second in command under Bishop Johanna. So if that's not a name you know, it's a name you should know. Presidents pro tempore provide day-to-day leadership for churches and clergy in their respective annual conferences. These 4 leaders have served in conference leadership for a number of years and will continue to provide seasoned leadership to the church in Nigeria. Bishop Johanna shared his thoughts on this milestone, stating, quote, "This is a momentous occasion for our Nigerian congregations and the GMC. We're united by our shared faith and mission, and I am confident that this partnership will bring about tremendous growth and spiritual renewal." And I don't think he's just saying empty words there. They are really throwing themselves behind the GMC there. Just the very first Sunday when they had transitioned over, there was all kinds of footage from these churches with the GMC logo out front, just being so glad to have left the UMC behind. The addition of these Nigerian conferences enriches the diversity and global outreach of the GMC and our continued commitment to inclusivity and worldwide ministry. We will continue to work closely with the leadership of Nigeria to foster a strong presence in Nigeria and a deeper connection with Methodists worldwide. Okay, we're near the end. Reverend Keith Boyette, Chief Executive Administrative Officer of the GMC, expressed his joy and hopes for the new development. Quote, "The entire leadership of the GMC stands with our Nigerian brothers and sisters in these important days of advancing the gospel in Nigeria and beyond." Boyette stated, "We count it a privilege for the church in Nigeria to be a vital part of our movement as we worship passionately, love extravagantly, and worship boldly. Witness boldly." That is the mission statement of the GMC. Way to work it into a statement. Very good. All right. Readers can learn more about the GMC by exploring its general website and provide some links at the end there. So I think it's a good thing that Nigeria is coming on board. But here's the thing. There's corruption in every institution, and not just in non-American ones. Americans have this way of kind of like stereotyping other nations and then not looking at our own flaws. There has been all kinds of corruption in every level of church governance for a long time, and it's not unique to Methodism. It's in every institution. There's some in more than in others. Nigeria's really struggled with a lot of tribalism for a long time, and I've covered that. Andy Emanuel is not planning on coming to the GMC, even if he wanted to. I don't think he'd be welcome. He's led a rebellion for a short amount of time. There's another gentleman whose name I always forget, who has his own breakaway faction of the United Methodist Church, and I think they are conservative as well. They could try to come in. especially as leadership changes and Johanna steps down and there's perhaps a new bishop. Who knows? But remember, this article stated flat out, they're not going to have regional bishops, at least for the time being. They're considered general superintendents of the whole church. So I wonder if they're expecting Bishop Johanna to travel across the connection now as the other two active bishops have. That would be interesting. I was actually saying to a friend yesterday, I think it would work out better if Johanna governed, led in the United States, and American bishops governed in Nigeria. I just think that would provide for more peace, and it would be easier for Nigerians not to. There's always a temptation to break into factions and pick your party man, and it would just be easier just to have a global identity if leadership from one region actually took responsibility for other regions for the time being. I could be completely wrong about that, but I am hoping that we can be very gracious about our global nature and not turn into factions. I'm concerned, I've been reporting on Nigeria for some time. I've been watching them for some time, and it seems to me that there is a lot of dysfunction in that region. And I think some of that is because of antagonism from the outside, but I also just get the feeling that on the inside, there's a lot of dysfunction. At one point, I was trying to transfer money to a church over there, and their treasurer, who's still on board with them, got real territorial and refused to facilitate the transfer for some time, raised a big stink about me and this other pastor. And that's just one sign of what I've seen as just kind of emblematic. There are a lot of people with a lot of personalities there. And, in the American church, we, I think, do a little bit better at not letting personalities govern whether or not work gets done. But I've just seen in Nigeria that a lot of personalities are very big. And also in recent coverage with Bishop Scholl traveling over there, I was really concerned about this confrontation that we saw them have where they were just screaming in his face, really. It was, these were district superintendents leading over there, and to see them conduct themselves with that much outrage leads me to worry that as the Nigerian conference comes in, that we're going to be looking at a lot of potential conflict coming down the road. Now, that's no reason to say we shouldn't have brought them in. We should have brought them in. I'm glad that we're bringing them in. I've said all along, right now the American church is declining. The church in Africa is increasing. We need to learn how to share the table with others who are bearing fruit. And Nigeria is bearing fruit, despite any kind of concerns I have about leadership. And it's just to say, it's like anything else. When you welcome new people into your church on the local level, there's going to be new conflicts that they bring, new challenges that they bring. As we bring in African conferences, especially as they start to understand that the bishops are not going to exercise authority over them the way that they have in the UMC, then I think it's very likely that we're going to see a lot more open hostility based on tribal tensions, long-term resentments, personal vendettas. I hope I'm wrong. I hope we don't see that stuff. But as we see that, it'll be just really important that the right mechanisms and persons are in place to intervene and intercede early and to make very firm decisions. So like in the case of Andy Emmanuel, who caused all this trouble in Nigeria, there was intervention on the part of other bishops, and they made clear decisions, but whenever Andy refused to abide by them, there were no consequences, there were no repercussions. And so we need to just make sure that we're resolved at this point as we try and facilitate peace across our connection, that we make firm, quick decisions and that we stand by them and implement them correctly. So if we can do that, then I think we can weather whatever trials come in with any new body coming in. And I don't want to convey at all that the Nigerian GMC is the only group that is going to, we have disagreement here in America. I'd like to think we're handling it well, but there's going to be disagreement going forward. I just want to make sure that we handle it well and that we're prepared for people who don't handle it well. And God bless it. I'll close in prayer here in a minute, just asking God's blessing on the GMC, that we really don't have any nasty conflict, and that all the gears of administration work quite well. So